Hey guys, I'm Julie Smith with Amedisys Home Health, and I want to thank John Burns, Elder Law, so much for inviting me to be here today for a discussion about fall reduction. And I'm a certified senior advisor. I have been for about 10 years, and a part of that role means I'm dealing with families, helping them come up with solutions, and oftentimes that conversation it has a lot to do with falls. And so today we're going to talk about some fall reduction tools that you can use, some solutions, and ways to kind of remove some hazards that are in the home and things like that. So one of the things that I thought I'd start off with too is telling you some statistics that 1 in every 4 older adults have reported having a fall. And you know what's interesting about that statistic is, we know that it's more often than that, but only 1 in 4 are actually reporting a fall. And a lot of times the senior thinks that if they fall, that you only count it as a fall as if you hit the ground hard. But actually, it can be considered a fall if you fall back into your chair, or if you slide down onto the floor out of a chair. If you don't have control of your body, it's most likely can be considered a fall. So, falls can cause a lot of harm, broken bones and bruises, trips to the hospital. One of the biggest things that we see with falls is this cycle of the fear of falling. And so I want to talk today about how do you break that cycle. And that fear of falling really happens, that cycle happens when you have a fall, and then you have such a fear of falling again that it just really paralyzes you, and it makes you not want to ever move again, and you're really reluctant to get back to daily life, and it can affect your quality of life for sure. So one of the first things that I encourage seniors and their caregivers to do is do a risk assessment to see how much at risk you are for a fall. And so I'm going to go through a few items here, and if you can answer yes to 3 or more of these, then you are probably at risk for falls. Are you 65 years or older? So that's one that could make you at higher risk for falling. Are you taking medication that could cause you to be dizzy or more fatigued than usual? That's a huge risk factor. Do you have diabetes? Diabetes can also cause neuropathy, and that could lead to not being able to, feel your feet and having pain in your feet, which could lead to a fall. Are you experiencing general weakness or just unsteadiness when you walk with your mobility? That's another one. Have you fallen within the last 3 months? That's a huge indicator that you're at risk for falls. And another one that I will mention is, do you have to rush to get to the bathroom? Have you been diagnosed with some sort of incontinence? That is a huge problem for so many older adults, and that sense of urgency to get to the restroom quickly can lead to a fall just because you're speeding up your momentum. So all of those are just some examples of a risk assessment that you can look at to see if you're at higher risk for falls, or maybe the person that you love and that you care for is at higher risk for falls. So some tips to break the cycle. We want to remove some of the hazards that are in the home, and that's one of the first things that we can do. As a certified senior advisor, I do home safety assessments sometimes with families, and that's one of the first things I do is look for hazards in the home. At Amedisys Home Health, our occupational therapists do home safety assessments as well, and that's one of the first things that they also look for are hazards in the home. Probably the biggest glaring hazard that I see most often in an older adult's home is a throw rug. Throw rugs everywhere, and that is a huge hazard for a fall, especially if you are maybe new to coming out of the hospital and you're using a walker for the first time. That could be a tripping hazard for sure, maneuvering around those throw rugs. So that's an easy fix. A lot of times an older adult may not want to make changes to their home, but wow, that's an easy fix to remove those, sometimes temporarily during a recovery period, and just remove that hazard is easy. Look at lighting. Make sure that there's good light in the hallway, night lights for going to the restroom at night. So poor lighting can certainly lead to a higher risk of falls, and that's an easy, inexpensive fix as well. Broken furniture. A lot of seniors, a lot of adults in general may hold on to furniture as they walk throughout the home, and so we want to make sure we have repaired or removed any broken furniture, and that way you're not at risk for, stumbling over a broken chair leg or something. Something that a lot of times people don't think of is the bed too high or too low, or is the toilet too high or too low? And so sometimes doing a little test to see how easy it is to get in and out of those beds and toilets, sometimes that helps to determine if you need to make any adjustments. Another thing that people may not think about is when it comes to bedding, oftentimes they may have like a slick bedspread, and that bedspread may be easy for the senior to slide off of, or even it may pillow at the end of the bed in the floor and be a tripping hazard. And so pay attention to the type of bedding that you're using and the sheets, and if they're really slick, that could be an issue. If the senior or older adult uses oxygen, pay attention to the oxygen tubing, making sure that it is not in the way and becoming a hazard. And then, of course, always pay attention to your stairs and the entryway to make sure there's a good solid rail to hold on to, grab bars when needed for getting in and out of the shower, some of those quick fixes. There's a lot of things that we can do to create a safe environment that are really inexpensive. But when a senior suffers a very catastrophic fall and breaks a hip, or maybe now is all of a sudden confined to a wheelchair, then you're talking about some really major changes to home improvements. And so if you can do some little things now to prevent a major fall, then it's going to save you money in the long run by far. So those are some things we want to do. One question that I get a lot from families is, what about pets? Many of our older adults have fur babies at home, and I did some research about that, and I found it interesting that falls happen more often with cats than they do with dogs. And for you cat owners out there, you may agree, yep, those cats are getting around your feet all the time and around your legs, and so they do account for a high number of falls. 66.4% of falls were caused by cats and 31% by dogs of the estimated 87,000 falls due to pets. And so that's an annual 87,000 falls. I thought that was interesting. Some quick tips that I can give you for helping with pets. If you have a animal maybe that sleeps with you at night or is in your bedroom at night, maybe consider a glow-in-the-dark collar. So if you are getting up at night to go to the restroom, you always can kind of see where they're at and you're not going to trip over them, or even sit down on top of them in the bed, something like that. If you have a multi-level home, consider having maybe a basket of toys and treats on both levels, so you feel like you don't have to go up and down steps in order to get the things that your pet needs and loves. If you have hyper dogs that really get excited with visitors, and they race to the door and you find yourself stumbling, either consider crating them during a time of visitors, or just let them go ahead and get that excitement out and get to the door before you, and then you just go slowly and get there when you can, and not worry about trying to beat the dog to the door. Of course, it's always good for dogs and cats both to have good manners, and there's certain classes that dogs can take to learn sit and stay commands and things like that. So I wanted to talk about some solutions for fall reduction. There are a couple of solutions that are available for seniors and their families. Caregivers call me often and ask, what are affordable solutions? One of the programs that Amedisys Home Health has to offer is a fall reduction program. Now, this is something that is paid for by Medicare, and if the doctor thinks that the patient needs it, then we can get that 100% covered by Medicare with no copays. And so the fall reduction program is a holistic approach to fall reduction. And so a lot of times people think, oh, it's just about building up my strength and having some physical therapy. And that is a part of it. Yeah, the older adult may need some physical therapy, especially if they're recovering from a hospital stay. But our holistic approach for our fall reduction program is often including skilled nursing to educate the older adult about maybe their disease process, to let them know what to expect as their diabetes, for example, progresses. So a nurse can continue that education. Maybe work with them on some medication management if there's medication that's causing dizziness or fatigue. Another component of that holistic approach that you really need to consider is occupational therapy. Our occupational therapists focus on independence and empowering our patients to do things for themselves. So, whether that's dressing yourself, bathing yourself, preparing a meal, doing the laundry, all those things that we have to do each day to be independent, that's what an occupational therapist can work on with the loved one to make sure that they are absolutely empowered to feel independent and to make sure that they're breaking that cycle of the fear of falling, that they can actually do those things with confidence and not be fearful that they may fall. And so occupational therapy is good for that. Speech therapy is something a lot of times people forget about, but a speech therapist can also be included in our holistic approach. And the speech therapist can work on cognition if there's any memory issues. Maybe there needs to be some reminder tools or some sort of techniques put into place to help a loved one remember to use their walker. Or maybe there's some nutrition that needs to be addressed. And so speech therapy is something that's oftentimes used as well. So those are just a few of the components of the Amedisys Fall Reduction Program of our holistic approach, which I think is really exciting to get in there and help a patient become empowered to be independent and build that confidence so that they're not fearful of falling. It's all about breaking that cycle of fear. One of the really unique components of our program is that patients can receive this fall reduction pendant, and it's free for the first 120 days, which is nice, so that families can try before they actually make the purchase. After the 120 days, if they decide that they'd like to keep the product, they can for a small monthly fee. But it's really nice. Of course, it has the button that the patient can push if there is an emergency, if they fall. But it also has the technology inside that if there is a fall, it will auto detect a fall even if they don't push a button. And so again, this fall detection program is included for all patients with Amedisys, whether you're on the fall reduction program or not. But obviously, fall reduction program patients almost always choose to have this and try this out. And so this is a great component of that. So other things that, I mentioned home health and a lot of solutions through Amedisys. Some other things that patients have found to be helpful is, just staying active. I hear lots of success stories of staying active through dance. Parkinson's patients have reported success by staying active through the Rock Steady boxing program that some of you may be familiar with. And so we just really encourage you to stay active, whatever that looks like, whether it's a group activity like dance or an individual activity, or just doing your home exercise routine prescribed by a therapist maybe. And so there are a lot of solutions that we can see. Now, a lot of families do turn to private pay home care, and of course a caregiver agency is available to do those sorts of caregiving if you need additional help as well. I have really covered a lot of area in a short amount of time, about 15 minutes. I wanted just to kind of hit the highlights of how to assess if you or your loved one is at risk for falls. So we talked about that. If you've fallen recently, if you have some issues going on with balance already, you're at risk for falls. We want to break that cycle of the fear of falling. You can do that by removing hazards from your home and building your confidence maybe with home health, like through Amedisys. So you can talk with your doctor. You can ask for Amedisys by name to get the fall reduction program. You can reach out to me, Julie Smith, with Amedisys Home Health at any time, and I'm happy to answer questions. It's julie.smith@amedisys.com. I thank you so much for allowing me to be with you this afternoon. Thank you, John Burns, Elder Law. And it's always great to be able to share education with the community. And I hope that you guys have a great afternoon.